Hello there, very good evening and welcome to Government in Transition. I'm your host, Ed Layne, and of course, this evening I'm joined by Priya Manikchand, former minister and of course, attorney at law and candidate for the People's Progressive Party Civic, as well as Sanjeeve Datadin, another attorney at law and a candidate of the People's Progressive Party Civic. We were expected to be joined a little later in the evening by Mr. Joe Hamilton, a candidate as well of the PPP. Joe is currently out of town and is hoping he can be back in time to join us. So, Priya, in the meantime, Priya, Sanjeev, good evening and welcome to the program. You're both muted, right?
Good evening. Good evening, Priya. Good evening, Ed. Good evening to your viewers and listeners, and thank you for having me.
Good evening to everybody, especially our faithful followers on Facebook, as well as both in Guyana and the diaspora, as well as our TV and radio followers. We are very happy to be able to bring to you the newest information daily. We wish we didn't have to. We wish we didn't have these circumstances, but we are where we are, and we are bound, duty bound, and we have committed as the PPPC to make sure that all our followers and supporters, indeed all Guyanese, are aware of what's happening every step of the way.
Thank you so much, Priya. Thank you, Sanjeev. I want to start, and I know that we cannot go in detail in terms of the court proceedings, but Sanjeev, you've been participating in the ongoing matter. Just a quick update, so to speak, for our viewers. I know today the oral arguments were presented. There was a lot of comedy as well from some of the presenters, especially um, Master Williams and some of the others. But just give us a quick update in terms of where we are at the moment.
Well, the proceedings, all arguments are finished. As far as all the parties are concerned, there may be minor written arguments by tomorrow morning, which is not of any great consequence, but the important part is the decision is for coming Thursday at 11 a.m. That's when the court will give a decision in this matter. As to what the matter is about, I think we all know. It's simply, essentially, what the argument is about is that Mr. Lowenfield must have his discretion of what numbers to give to the commission, and the commission must accept it. As it stands, he's using Mingo's numbers, which are plainly fraudulent. Our argument is, of course, firstly, it has been established, proven, and it's public knowledge that those numbers are not credible. They are false, they are fake, they are fraudulent. There are charges about those numbers. So notwithstanding what Mr. Lowenfield would think, he cannot act with those numbers. As it relates to the rest of the case and the directions and whether Section 22 of the Act is constitutional, whether all the various things about Order 60 is valid, it's Groundhog Day. It has happened twice before. This is the third time. It happened in Yulita Moore. It happened in Eslin David. This is just the same thing being done by the same group of lawyers, and it is our contention that they are finding nominal litigants. At this rate, we might have 217,000 cases being filed in the court by 217,000 supposedly nominal litigants. This should not happen. It's the same attorneys arguing the same issues, literally cut and paste in their arguments and in fact their pleadings, as was established today during the proceedings in court. As it relates to the time, it's a little longer than we would have hoped for Thursday, but that's what it is. It is what it is, and we're going to have a decision on Thursday morning at 11 a.m.
Thank you very much, Sanjeev. Priya, I don't know if you would want to add anything to based on your observation today. I know you've been following the case as well, but I'm a bit curious, Sanjeev, about that last minute case cited by Mr. Jeremy, I think it is. But I'm going to hear from Priya first.
Not to add anything substantively to the matter. I mean, look, we're discussing here whether Mr. Lowenfield, Keith Lowenfield, or whether the chief election officer, whether his name is Keith Lowenfield or Mary Luke or Champawati, whoever occupies that office, whether that person by himself or herself could disregard votes, could invalidate votes. That is really the question at hand. Could Lowenfield sit down in that office and throw away 115,000 votes? We don't need the High Court or the Court of Appeal or the CCJ to tell us that that sounds stupid. It just sounds stupid. And because courts generally don't operate in a vacuum and they are there to do what is just, they will do what is just. And I expect the Court of Appeal is going to rule just like every other court has ruled so far. And that is that, without getting into details about what I think they'll say, they will essentially say, one, the PPPC won the elections. That is reflected in the recount. The recount figures must be used. Mr. Lowenfield cannot sit down by himself and invalidate votes. And he certainly cannot go back to Mr. Mingo's declaration, which was proven not only on the night he made the declaration by the existing SOPs that GCOM had issued, but through the recount that he had inflated all the numbers and committed some serious fraud. So we don't even need to get into whether court needs to. If you got sense and you got a head on your shoulders, you can figure out what is right and what is wrong. Because, Eddie, there's no gray area here. It's either a CEO could sit down and decide that whichever government party he likes will get into government, or he cannot. And if we take the position that a CEO could do that, then the next CEO in 2025 will be able to do that. And supposing that CEO in 2025, for the APNU supporters, I'll ask you this. Supposing in 2025 we have a CEO who likes the PPP better than the PNC, would you be comfortable with, if it is, I mean, that's a hard task to suggest that the PNC is going to win, but if your party were going to win, would you like it if the CEO had the power to just sit down and say, no, the PPP will get the government simply because I, CEO, say so? Because if the courts rule like that, that is essentially what we're saying for 2025 and 2030 and all the other elections. And that just makes no sense. No one person could speak for the whole of Guyana. If that were the case, we didn't need to go to elections. And that is why it hasn't been hard at all, Eddie, for anybody to say that anybody, the OAS, the Commonwealth, the CARICOM, the EU, India today, Norway, France, and Vincent and the Grenadines, the ABC countries, it hasn't been hard for anyone to say we have to use the recount figures and declare the elections quickly, immediately. It hasn't been hard for anyone to say that. Regarding the case, for myself, I'm a little disappointed. I think everybody is in Guyana that we have to wait until Thursday. But it is what it is. We have to wait until Thursday. But I think people expected a decision. The courts have become so efficient in the elections matters that people expected a decision somewhere around Monday, Tuesday. So it's a little bit of a disappointment, but it's 2 more days. We waited 4 months. We can wait 2 more days.
Certainly, as we have that saying, what is it, Sanjeev? Long time done, short time left. So
Short time left.
4 more days. I mean, we've been waiting since December 2018 for that matter, though, Priya, since the no confidence. Like 3 months after, we've been struggling to get an election. But in all of this that has been happening, all this craziness, all this confusion, we are seeing a couple of things, and one of them being the fact that in these COVID times, you're seeing the AP and UFC, the small gang, the remnants of that cabal, trying to fan out to different parts of the country, trying to get people together, in breach, of course, of the COVID-19 guidelines that they themselves would have drafted. And I understand that they have attempted a couple of meetings on the Esquimalt coast, and like they did during the elections, they were forced to take buses and transport people from one meeting to the other, maybe to just show that they have some sort of support. But that aside, is in all of this that we're seeing with regards to the behavior of the APNU AFC, one thing is evident, and that is there seems to be a lot of issues in the coalition. And by the way, if I should mention, I saw one of their candidates complaining about wanting to leave because he don't feel at home with them. And maybe I should be as plain as possible. He felt that as an Indo-Guyanese being in that camp, that there is no respect, he's not trusted, and a whole host of things. And that is just a demonstration of how divided, how confusing, and the chaos that is taking place in the coalition camp. Um, and it shows too, and based on what I've been hearing, is that, you know, David Granger um, is in mass confusion, if you want to call it, being able to command his troops, quote unquote, being able to take control of what is happening. He seems to be very much intimidated by the likes of Joe Harmon and the others, because when you look at the messaging that is coming out from that coalition, the mixed messaging, the changing narrative, you can sense there is a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos. I don't think today they know what they will do tomorrow, and that is demonstrative of the fact that they don't have any truth to really tell people. You know, when you're lying, you have to play it one day at a time. You don't want to preempt a lie. You tell a lie today, you have to see how that work out, and then tomorrow morning when you wake up, you come up with something else if that doesn't work, or if you need to continue the narrative. And that is exactly what we've been seeing. So there's a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos in that camp, and that is because of desperation. We understand that they have recognized by themselves that they have lost elections. So there's a lot of confusion trying to control the narrative, trying to mislead um, their supporters. And that, again, is one of the reasons we understand for those activities outside of Georgetown, going to Essequibo and Linden and other parts of the country. Sanjeev, I bring you in here. Granger is not in charge. Clearly, he is not in charge. He is being controlled, manipulated, I think, by the likes of Joe Harmon, Amna Ali, and Valda Lawrence, and the others.
Well, it certainly appears so, Ed. But before I get to that, if I could just go back to the last thing that you had mentioned about them today in court bringing up something at the very last minute, which they had not put in their submissions or thing, just so that people understand what it is, because I'm sure they'll make a lot more out of it than it actually is. What was brought up was this. There was a transcript of the proceedings before Justice Holder. You recall that there was proceedings that were had before Justice Holder, which is the Ulita Moore case. During those proceedings, what Senior Counsel Douglas Mendez had raised with the court in his submission is that if you are going to proceed to try to investigate things, then you had to make a determination that Mingo's numbers were fraudulent. You had to accept that as a position, or you had to consider it. Otherwise, what you were doing is you were going to be trying to say, accept those numbers because they were the numbers. Now, the position is that the court has no jurisdiction to do that, but the court has a limited jurisdiction to supervise the officials. That is why senior counsel only required 10 seconds to respond to them, because what he was saying then was not that he's saying this is the position. What he was saying was, if you decide to say that we must accept that, you have to consider whether that is valid. And that's what he was also saying today. So as he said very clearly, he has been very consistent on the issue. And he has been very consistent in how he has framed the argument. So I'm sure that they will do the typical thing as they did before, and they will want to say, well, oh, he may have admitted in his submissions in that court, or he may have said something. He didn't. He was arguing, giving examples, and outlining the position, saying, if you take that part, this is what is relative. But coming back to the other, to what you've asked about what is going on and who is in control. You see, Ed, my view is this. What is going on is clearly they have realized that they have lost the elections. It is now a game of trying to hang on, trying to deceive their supporters, their loyal supporters, and trying as best as they can to hang on to power. Now, it appears from what we have been seeing, we saw Mr. Granger for a period of time. And there was a time when we all know he doesn't do enough press conferences. He doesn't ever face the media or the public. But he hasn't done anything like that for a while. And we have all this rhetoric that is coming out from the rest of the PNC, essentially, about fanning out to the country, meeting people, wanting to do this, wanting to do that. And it must be that what has happened now with the OAS Permanent Council meeting, with the CARICOM meeting, with there being sanctions being imposed by the United States, and more will be coming, and more will be Guyana, the people involved in the rigging will face that. The perception is it's really now not Granger who is driving the bus on a lot of this, but he is being forced by those who are below him, who might have much to gain personally and who were perceived to be during the administration to be the power brokers and to be the commerce men, to be the persons who want to hold on to power. And you're seeing in the papers and in the press every day about deals that are being signed with the Sea Defense, the deals for the lift of the oil, the contract to do a hospital, which I understand has now stopped. All of these things that you see are being done. The sale of land, prime real estate in Ogle. These things are happening because there are people who want to make money. Bluntly put, that's what they want to do. And they cannot do that, and they cannot continue to plunder the resources of the country if they're not in government. And they are now insistent that Granger remains and does as they're bidding so that they can continue to do what they're doing. So it might not be that he has a say in what is going on, because those who have financial gain and those who have an interest in what can be done with the power of being in government, even if it's just de facto being there, then those are the ones that are compelling him to do what it is they want to do. So the perception is, and you notice, he's not slated. I've looked at all, I've not seen him slated to go meet any group of people anywhere. I see everybody else is down and listed on those lists, but I don't see his name.
Because Sanjeev, you have to understand, there is no script for Granger right now. Granger seems to be only able to read from a script, to speak from a script. Whatever Joe Harmon or Amna Ali or Val Lawrence give to him, that is what he's able to speak from. I believe personally, I think Granger, she's mentally unstable, because I'll say this, and I'll tell you why I think so. When you listen, this is a man who says today that I'll accept the results of the recount. Then tomorrow he says, I'll accept the results of the declaration by the chair of GCOM, any declaration by the chair of GCOM. Then the next day he comes to say, I'll accept any declaration by the chair of GCOM that is in keeping with the law. He seems to be not settled. He seems to be having serious mental problems. And I think Granger has been brainwashed so much by this cabal, people like Joe Harmon and the others. Because remember, Granger confessed that he had never seen the statements of poll. He has seen a spreadsheet, maybe Mingo's spreadsheet, maybe Lowenfield's spreadsheet. So he is made to believe somehow that he won the elections. And I think as a leader, if you're the leader of a political party, a major political movement that contested the election, that is in some contention with the other major political party for the leadership, for a government, and you haven't seen your statements of poll, it's because they don't want him to see the truth. And I think as we go down in the program, we're going to have some discussions why I think um, Granger is misled to believe somehow that he won the elections. That fallacy is being sold to him and he's believing it. But I think when you listen to him, when you look at his actions, when you look at what happened in front of State House, and I heard Joe making the point this morning to say that this man showed up out there to meet with supporters. He had his mask in his hand and he was playing with it, trying to figure out maybe what to do with this. I mean, when you look at his actions, I don't know, Priya, I'll bring you in here, but I don't know if you've been observing, but I think somehow Granger is not mentally stable. And that is why people like Joe Harmon and the others can able to easily, misdirect him.
We are beyond the point. I don't know if I don't believe Mr. Granger has behaved as a decent, honorable person who should hold the office. So look, the office of the president deserves some respect regardless of who is in it, and I've always been willing to give that. But I think ever since the December 2018, the 21st, on the 23rd, Mr. Granger says we're going to accept we fell. Don't worry about it. There's no reason for alarm. Those were his words. Guyana, there's no cause for alarm. We're going to go to an election. We're going to win the electorate because we've done a lot of things, and he listed his things that he thought he did and so on, and then did an about turn, and we have seen him flip flopping like that for the entire duration of his presidency. I am not sure that he's sane. I'm not sure if we got him on insane in the first place because some people are very good at hiding things like that. But what I want to say though is that we're beyond that. It doesn't matter whether he is sane or not. It doesn't matter whether Harmon and Valda and all of them are sane and or law abiding and or have democratic values that the rest of the democratic world have. It does not matter. What matters is that we have laws in this country and we have values of democracy in this country and we have friends around the world who have and share the same values. And so we don't even need him to be sane and sensible or to be in control of his party. He is going to have to comply with those laws. He's going to have to comply with what happens, the practice that happens when people lose an election. And he's going to have to come out. I'm not so certain. I hold the view that look, I would challenge Mr. Granger because I don't think he's unaware of these programs. If you're not mentally deranged, as Ed Layne says, or totally out of control of what's happening in your party, as Sanjeeve Datadin says, and both of these gentlemen are reflecting really what large numbers of persons in the society think, then switch on your life. Let Mrs. Granger, a very smart woman, help you. Go live on Facebook, concede to your finale now, and let this country begin to develop. Mr. Granger, he can do that. Nobody is holding him ransom in his house. So even if we were to believe, because the behavior is so strange that you kind of wonder if somebody else is in control of him. So even if we were to believe that Mr. Granger is not in control of his faculties or his behavior and actions, there are ways very easily these days, unless this rigging cabal has switched off his internet and has interfered with his ability to go live online and so on. He could do the right thing now, right now. Or we could don this dance, as we say in Guyana. We could don the dance now and show us your SOPs. Show us those SOPs that you say caused you to win this election. You can't be vacillating. I'm not sure if you all remember this. During the recount, when we were calling for the production of the SOPs, they said very clear, that we're not talking about SOPs anymore. That period is finished. We're now in a recount period. You all remember that? Now we're trying to revert to numbers that were on, they claim are on their SOPs, and they alone got these SOPs. Nobody else in this country, no other political party. GCOM doesn't have it. It's not posted up outside the wall. It's not taken as photographs by the various polling agents and presiding officers and so on. So um, for me, it is one thing is consistent because you said, and you're right, the stories have been changing. The stories have been changing, the narratives have been changing, who's saying it and who's carrying the message has been changing. But what has been consistent throughout the time is that the stories all aim towards taking the election, rigging the election, although the people of Guyana do not want Mr. Granger and his party in government. So everything has been centered around that. Yolita Moore was so that Granger could be sworn in. Eslin David was so that Granger could be sworn in. This new one, Masinji Jones, is so that Granger could be sworn in. So their stories might change. Mr. Mingo's fraudulent figures is so that Granger could be sworn in. Mr. Keith Lowenfield throwing away 275,000 votes is so that Mr. Granger could be sworn in. Mr. Lowenfield changing his mind and throwing away 115,000 votes is so that Mr. Granger could be sworn in. All the stories, the attacks on the judges, the attacks on the magistracy, the attacks on the chairperson, the attacks on lawyers representing various parties, it's all been aimed towards one thing and one thing only, so that Mr. Granger could be sworn in. And you heard today, I mean, I hate to mention his name, he's such a parasite and old fossil in my mouth, but you heard today Hamilton Green, not so long ago, suggesting and saying very clearly that he's going to say to his young friend David, I mean, imagine Green calling David. David is an old man. He's a fossil himself. And I have nothing against old people. But Green is saying to his young friend David that you're going to have to do things that are not popular, throw away the Constitution, throw away the laws, and do things that are not populist. Mr. Hamilton Green comes from a painful, murderous, dictatorial part of our past that will not become our future. The people of Guyana will not have it. The rights-loving people of this world will not have it. Mr. Hamilton Green is irrelevant and trying to become relevant, but he tells the story, perhaps by accident, of the plan of the PNC, APNU, AFC. And that is, come what may, we will throw away these laws and we will do what all these efforts were aimed at. And that is to swear in Granger for a long time. And he said that very clearly today.
Thanks, Priya. You know, and for one of the reasons why I said I think that Granger is indeed mentally deranged, has some sort of challenges up here, because we've reached a point where you have a group of extremists who are basically exploiting Granger's weakness. They see somehow that maybe he's a weakened individual, he's very vulnerable, and they're exploiting it. And those are the people like I mentioned Joe Harmon, and you just mentioned people like Hamilton Green, who came from the dinosaur age, you know, who only knew about rigging, about criminal activities while he was part of the PNC and while the PNC was in government. So you have all these people are exerting some tremendous pressure on Granger because they realize he's vulnerable. They realize that he's mentally unstable. And they're trying to capitalize on that to force him practically to accept what he don't even know. Because apparently he doesn't even know if he really won the elections or not. And that's the reality. Sanjeev, I bring you in here.
Well, Ed, you see, it's true what Priya is saying. There is no plan. There is nothing going on. There is no consistency with their message. There is no consistency with their leadership. But the one thing that is consistent is they want to rig the election. That's consistent with everyone and all of the plan to rig the election. They have tried in the most pathetic way to try to rig an election in front of everyone. in front of the whole world, every observer, the diplomatic corps, and then it comes back around, and they try to do it again, twice. I mean, Mingo tried to do it twice, and then we have this. I mean, it is utterly mind-boggling in this day and age, Ed, that Lowenfield, who is supposed to be the chief elections officer, he produces a set of results 235,000 short, approximately. He produces another set of results 115,000 short. He produces the third one 14,000 extra. I mean, he's playing a game. If it were not so serious, somebody would be shouting lotto or bingo, because he keeps changing these numbers at his own whim and fancy. These cannot be credible things. And if you look at what the argument is and what the narrative is that they're trying to tell their supporters, it has nothing to do with the numbers anymore. All of it centers around, they have decided to ride Mr. Lowenfield's coattails. It centers around Mr. Lowenfield has the absolute power to do this. And it says on his sole discretion. So let him exercise his sole discretion. Never mind what he says is blatantly false. Never mind what he says is an adoption of Mingo's obviously fraudulent numbers. Never mind all of that. He is the one among the group, as they would say, you know, you take one for the team. That's effectively what they've taken the position to be. That, look, Lowenfield has said it so, and the law says you have to go with Lowenfield. But so what about all the migrant voters and dead voters you were talking about? But you still want to accept these numbers from Lowenfield because it suits them, of course. I mean, it was, you look at what happened yesterday in court. Mr. Lowenfield was charged. He went to court. He appeared, he's supposed to be independent, neutral. He appeared with lawyers that are clearly sympathetic to the coalition. And he didn't think anything was wrong with that. That's what he did. You then look at what's been circulating today, which Priya alluded to. You have Hamilton Green saying to throw away the laws and to throw away the Constitution. Is he utterly mad? I mean, I know he's an old man, but I don't think he's only old. He's demented, he's senile, he's insane. How could you take a position and advise the person who is currently the president, he's the de facto president, but your advice to him is, young Granger, do what you got to do? What does he think this is? But Ed, this is the slow creep. And this is why you look at what has happened. The rhetoric is changing. The narrative is changing. And it is increasingly focused on nothing logical. They are not insisting that they got more votes than the PPP anymore. They are not insisting that if you were to count valid votes in any stretch of the imagination, that they have won the election. They are not insisting on any of this anymore. They're insisting on two things. The first is that Lowenfield said we win, so we don't care where you get the numbers from. We've won. And the second thing is the type of message that you see Hamilton Green saying, that forget the law, forget the Constitution, we have to do this. We have Vincent Alexander preaching on the other side. Don't worry with all of that. We should have a do-over, meaning we declare no results and we go back. And that's what they are repeating. That's what they're trying to do. Those are aggressive stances to take. Those are intimidatory words. Those are words with menace that they are trying to do to intimidate persons. You see the attack on the judges. You see the attack on the CCJ judges, the Court of Appeal judges, the Chief Justice, Madam Justice Claudette Singh, who is no longer a judge. You see the attack on the lawyers. Anyone to speak up to say that what you are doing is wrong, what you are doing is unlawful, you are trying to steal an election. Gonzalez, Prime Minister Gonzalez said, take your licks like a man. They went after him. Prime Minister Mia Mottley said there are people here, forces at work, that don't want to have this done. They went after her. But the reality is, what are you going to do? Are you going to go after everyone? Are you going to continue to isolate Guyana from everywhere? Are you going to operate as if Guyana is the only country in the world as an island? You know the thing, no man is an island. You need assistance. Can you imagine the absolute shame that we would get lectured at the OAS Permanent Council by Venezuela to respect the will of your people? Can you imagine? They don't see this as being shameful, but you see, they don't care. My belief is they do not care. All they care about is we must remain in power, because they enjoy the sweet of the state for their whatever purposes they choose. That's all that's considered. You know, if you look at it, the no confidence motion happened in 2018, December. This is July 2020. They are still controlling the realm of government so far by trick, by conning people, by deceit, but it continues. So now what Guyana has found itself in, for whether for better or for worse, we have found ourselves where we have undermined every institution. We have broken the judiciary, because the only place that civilized people settle disputes is in a court. But they have consistently attacked any judge that would stand against them. So the idea is you want to break the institutions. You're fanning out to meet people. You're only going to tell those people insightful things. That's why you're going. You've been trying your usual methods of getting them to come out. Nobody's coming. So now you know the usual thing. You phone a man to try to talk to him, but you can't get him. So you're really desperate now. So you're going to his house to see him because you want something done. That's essentially what's going on. Make no bones about it. It's a slow creep towards desperation in its most extreme form. And that's what's happening.
I agree with you, Sanjeev. And there are a number of factors at play here. Because, and you mentioned, both you and Priya mentioned Hamilton Green. And you have to look at what Hamilton Green said in context, and you understand how serious of a statement he made. In essence, like you rightly said, he's saying to Granger, look, you just stage a coup d'etat. That is, in essence, what he said to him. You just become a dictator, you just take control, you throw away the constitution, ignore the rule of law, and you take control. And I think he did mention to say something to the effect of, you remain commander-in-chief for a very long time. He mentioned you are the commander-in-chief. In essence, he is saying that you're in charge of the armed forces. Use them to your advantage. That is what he is saying. Hamilton Green is simply saying in very simple words to David Granger, Mr. Granger, it's time you become a dictator. That is what he is saying to him. Then, I know you're going to come in here, Priya, but let me just make this one more point. Because
not to cut you, Ed, I think he's already a dictator.
I just want to make this one point before I bring Priya in. Then you have, on the other hand, you have the people like Rickford Burke and the others who are living in the US and all over the place, and and they are inciting. They are trying to divide people. They are talking about the resistance, what Harman was talking about. Then you have them going to these communities, and I believe the only reason they're going to these communities, and you look at the communities that they selected. Look at the communities that they selected. Are communities where they have some sort of support. They are going to those people with their whisper campaigns to try to stir up issues, to try to divide people, to try to create confusion. To what end? Maybe is to fit into Hamilton Green's plan that he spoke about, basically, or his advice to the advice that he gave to Granger. Priya?
Well, Hamilton Green is getting hammered by us tonight, and I actually feel sorry for him, because all he did really was to voice what has been actually happening. What has been happening? They've thrown away the Constitution. So it doesn't matter anymore about people having the constitutional and humane, born with inherent right to choose a government. They've attempted to throw away all the laws, the representation of the people, People's Act, which guarantees, one vote, one person, and that it will be counted. They've attempted to throw away everything that is decent in the democratic world. All Hamilton Green did was put voice to what everybody else has been doing, and they're too ashamed to say this is actually what we're doing. They want to say. So Granger is probably going to quarrel with Green tonight if he's awake, because he sleeps early apparently. But he's going to be quarreling because he's been saying all the time, I always follow the Constitution, I always follow the laws, I always follow. But when you look at it, he is actually someone, and everything that they have done reflects what Green has said. They have thrown away the Constitution, they've thrown away the laws. Now, when you were speaking, you spoke about all these people who are creating havoc. It's not a lot of people, Eddie. You have Rickford Burke, who, if you listen to him, it is amazing that he holds claim to be a professional. He just lies incessantly. He tells blatant untruths that are easily verifiable as untruths. He incites people. He is openly racist. He is sexist. He's abusive. He it's important. Mark Benchcop says very clearly that he prefers anybody else but the PPP. So we know where he stands. So it's Rickford Burke, it's Mark Benchcop, both of them living in the United States of America, not living in Guyana, won't have to be visited, or their children will not be visited with the havoc that a dictatorship will wreak on us. And of course Granger and a few in his leadership. So when you saw the pandit come out today, you made mention of it earlier, and made a public complaint that he believed because of his ethnicity, because he's saying because he's Indian, they're not treating him well, and he is unhappy and he wants to leave the coalition. And I have news for the gentleman. It has nothing to do. It might have to do with the fact that he's Indian. Indian people have complained that they're not treated equally in that party, but I don't believe. I believe he is like everyone else. It's about 5 people holding on to power so that 40 people could benefit. So the pandit is amongst the regular supporter of the APNU AFC, whether they're Black, Indian, Amerindian. The regular supporter of the APNU AFC has got nothing from them. In this COVID shutdown, when people have lost jobs, their light bills are still coming with 14% VAT. Their water bills are still coming. Their children still have to eat, and the APNU AFC has done nothing to help the ordinary Guyanese, including their supporters. So Mr. Hamilton Green, a relic from the past, a fossil, a parasite. Remember, let's not forget that Charandas Prasad, in voting against the APNU AFC and saying that he had lost confidence in their governance, in his post-vote press conference, the Hamilton Green pension bill was one of the reasons he gave as something that made him disgusted with what the APNU AFC was doing. So if there is someone to blame for the loss, it is the people who decided they were going to give Hamilton Green a pension that he ought not to have got. Change the law to do that. Use their majority not to help sugar workers that they had fired, not to pay the teachers the 50% that they'd offered, not to figure out a way to give the soldiers and policemen and firemen their bonuses, not to try to help the gold miners, but to go and give this man this hefty pension. And that was one of the reasons used. Now, so you have a small group, a very small group, coming out of the 1980s, described in Father Morrison's book. So, I was just reading a page, Green's libel suit. And this is how it starts. I won't read the whole story. It was a week of violence, culminating on Saturday, the 18th of August, 1982, with the smashing of picket lines outside Guyana stores in the city and the replacing of the striking workers by scabs drawn mainly from the House of Israel. Mr. Hamilton Green was reported as being in charge of this activity, if we want to call it an activity. And of course, the judge at the time, Justice Pompey, and this is how we record things, history records these things about human beings, found in favor of Mr. Hamilton Green. But the article ends, the chapter ends like this. The WPA printed a headline that said, "All the world saw." It's the same kind of thing now, except in 2020. Same kind of thing. You're trying to, but it's not enough of them. You have Hamilton Green, who is 95 or 96 or 99. You have David Granger, who 75. You have a bunch of old men and women who believe they can bring this 1982 type behavior into 2020 successfully. And the people of Guyana, the young people of Guyana, the Dominic Gaskins of Guyana, the Supriya Singhs of Guyana, the PPP supporters of Guyana, the ordinary. I saw a young businessman named Christian Duncan, former QC graduate, come out the other day who said, "I voted my entire life. I voted for the AP and UAFC. But when they went in there, they did the opposite of what they said they would do." This other young businesswoman coming out, Angelique, saying, "I gave you my vote in 2011. I put you there in 2015. I put you there in 2020. But you cannot take my vote and do this with it." So the people who are coming from the 1980s have to understand that there's no way we will allow them. The country will allow them, the PPPC will allow them, the new democratic parties will allow them, or ordinary people of Guyana, including PNC supporters, will allow them to bring this kind of behavior into 2020. We simply will not allow it. And that's why they have problems getting people out to their meetings. Their own supporters are not going to come out to those meetings. And that's why you have the Pandit fella feeling left out, because this is just a few persons who are trying to hold on to power for, like Sanjeev said at the beginning of the program, it's all about the money. I mean, generally when politicians look for power, or political parties look for power, it's so that they could serve and improve lives and so on, win votes and hearts for the next election. We didn't see any of that in the last 5 years. So Eddie, I don't believe it's plenty people. I don't think the APNU, not I don't think, the APNU AFC has been unable to get one single country to stand in their corner, one single prime minister to stand in their corner, one single organization. So I want to point out to you, the GPSU and the other PNC organizations who are coming forward are not coming forward to say the APNU won the elections. They're coming forward to say, look, for peace sake, let's go back to another election. For peace sake, let's have dialogue. Nobody is saying they won the election, because I think the world knows, their own supporters know that they have not won the election. The difference with the Hamilton Green era and the 2020 era is that the world will not allow people who do not enjoy the confidence and mandate of the people of the country to assume office. The world would not treat them as legitimate. And we've heard that complaint repeatedly, not complaint, that very clear statement from all the representative groups, the OAS, the CARICOM, the Commonwealth, America, Canada, Britain, everybody saying that if you assume office without using the recount figures, we are not going to treat you as legitimate. We're not going to treat you as a peer and a partner. And that really is the problem Mr. Granger had, or he would already have been sworn in. Had this been 1982, he would have been sworn in. It is not 1982. And Guyana must take hope in that fact. And everybody must speak up, whether it's on your Facebook page or your Instagram page, or with your colleagues and neighbors in the community, wherever you are, you have to speak up. It's your business. And that's what 2020 brings, the freedom to stand up to make sure your vote counts.
Interestingly, Priya, you read a few lines from that book there, and you emphasize how history record people. And yes, Granger needs to understand that history will record him for what he's doing now. I want to read this paragraph from Anil Nandalal's weekly column, The Unruly Horse. Interestingly that you brought up that. And he says, what Mr. Granger needs to understand is that it is him who is on national and international trial, not them. Meaning those same people who you mentioned, those utensils who are trying to start all sorts of things. History may not even footnote the existence of these radical elements, let alone record their diabolical schemes. As a historian, Mr. Granger should understand that his legacy will be the only footprint by which he will be judged by future generations. So if Mr. Granger wants to sit down, if Mr. Granger wants to allow this small cabal to bully him, to force him to hang on to power, to remain in office when he knows fully well that the people of Guyana have not given him a mandate, then as Anil said there, history will record him. You think the history books will write Rickford Burke used to say that they should divide the people of Guyana, they should fight against each other? You think the history books are going to record Mark Benchcop spewing a whole host of nonsense daily on his radio station? No. It will record David Granger as the 8th executive president of Guyana who became a dictator. So Granger has to make that decision. And he has to listen to the voices of reasoning, like those of Supriya Singh, those of Gaskin and the others that you mentioned, voices like the gentleman from DDL, voices like the former foreign minister, former UN Secretary General, Sir Sridhar Ramphal. Those are the voices you need to listen to, not a group of people who, because of their corruption, want to hold on to office so they can hide or cover the tracks, as we call it. Not a group of people who promise all sorts of people all sorts of things and take their money for the elections campaign. Now they lost the elections, so they want to hold on to power to pay back. Not a group of people who, because of the fact that they know the good life will come to an end, the good life for them, that is, they want to hang on to power. He has to listen. If he wants to be recorded in history in a positive light, then he has to do the right thing. That is, you've lost the elections, and Mr. Granger knows. I said earlier maybe the spreadsheet, but I think by now, having seen the recount, and I believe before we went into the recount, because Mr. Granger said he saw a spreadsheet, he's never seen the SOPs. I firmly believe that before we went into the recount, Granger was convinced he won the elections based on that spreadsheet. It is after the recount would have commenced, and maybe he started looking at the numbers and realizing, especially in Region 4, the numbers are different from what I have here. The real numbers are coming out. I think that by itself, and that is why you find the confusion started there. A lot of confusion. They try to convince him all sorts of things. Mr. Granger by now should know and should have listened to the statements from all those organizations and individuals that you mentioned, Priya, and by now should have known that he lost the elections. If he wants to be recorded in history as someone that people may reference in a good light in the future, then he has to do the right thing. It's simple. You said it earlier, Priya, that all of this can end quite easily. Come out, concede, and allow Guyana to breathe, allow Guyana to move on. People in this country are suffering. They are suffering in every single corner. And not just supporters of one political party, every single political party, and every single people of every single economic status, because businesses are struggling. The poor people are struggling, every single one. So Mr. Granger should allow this country to breathe again. And by the way, those people, they went to Essequibo, I think they're there this weekend, to tell people lies. I doubt whether they carry a single hamper to give to a single family or a mask to give to a single individual. So Mr. Granger should do the right thing. The time is still there for him to concede and let Guyana move on. I'll give both of you an opportunity to wrap things up, starting with you, Priya, and then Sanjeev.
Well, he should do the right thing, but if he doesn't do the right thing, the universe is going to fix that. So I expect the courts to rule on Thursday, the only sensible ruling you could possibly have, and that is that the way the people of Guyana voted must be given effect to. And if that is a fundamental value that is reflected in all our laws, then the recount figures will be used. We'll see that the PPPC won the election by 400 16,400 votes. We'll see that 15,000, right? What am I saying? 15,400 votes. We'll see that the court saying that the figures must be used and the declaration must be made on that ground, and that no one person, such as a CEO or anyone else or a combination of persons, can act to change the will of the people. So it's not only whether Mr. Granger will do the right thing. If he doesn't do the right thing, Guyana will get back on trajectory, on the right trajectory, because we have laws, we have courts that interpret those laws and that have interpreted those laws correctly so far. And we have friends and allies around the world who've already signaled very clearly, very, very unambiguously, and repeatedly that they are simply not going to stand by and abandon Guyana and Guyanese while a small cabal pushes the country into dictatorship, that Mr. Granger must step aside and allow the lawful, elected political party whose candidate is Dr. Irfan Ali to be sworn in. So whether or not he does the right thing is hardly, it would be good for him. It would be good for this country. But if he doesn't, I want to say to Guyana, there's no need to lose hope. We are going to get your will reflected, and Irfan Ali is going to be sworn, but we expect and rely on and thank you for your support and help over the last 4 months in resisting with all our might, collectively and individually, the attempts to rig this election.
Ed, I echo a lot, I endorse, if I can, a lot of what Priya has said. The position is that it's irrelevant. It would be ideal, it would be preferred if Granger were to do the right thing and he was to concede. But I don't think that if he chooses not to do so, that it means he's going to remain in power. The international community has been very firm, and they have been very determined, as have been the supporters of the PPP. And not only the supporters of the PPP, Guyanese generally have been standing firm and not allowing this rigging cabal to win. And we have a short part more to go, and we should stay the course. Long time done, short time left. We need to stay the course. But we have to understand what's going to happen to those who stand with Granger and his rigging cabal, whether or not he is the chief cook of it or whether he is just being forced into it. The sanctions that have already come to them are going to increase now. It is going to affect their families, their brothers, their sisters, nieces, nephews, uncles, aunts. Anyone that they have contact with in those countries are going to be subject to scrutiny. Anyone that they would have ever transferred money, stayed at, and used as an address, they all become part of the net when the sanctions have come. Their major financiers, the people who are benefiting from this, they are also going to be subject to sanctions. Their families are going to be subject to sanctions. And you got to understand that sanctions are not a switch. You don't get sanctioned and then you say, okay, and then it's switched off. For at least 5 to 7 years thereafter, your name is on a list that you would rather it not be. Your activities are going to be monitored. in a way that is not very pleasant. But these are the realities of where we are. We're approximately 140, 143 days from an election. I think we're well past the world record. I'm not sure what it is, but it can't be this long. No country can have a vote, a legitimate, clean vote on election day. And nearly 150 days later, we don't have a result. The truth is, Ed, we all know the result. We all know that Irfan Ali is the next president and he will be sworn in. At some point in time, that will be. This is all a game of delay. This is all, as in Guyana terms, you say we're stretching them out. So basically, this is what they're doing. Unfortunately, this is not a game. These are the livelihoods of people. We're in a global pandemic where more people are testing positive and we're getting more deaths. And that's because Guyana doesn't quite have a direction. We don't have a clear path as to what to do with this. We don't have a proper government in place. You know, if you go look at all the countries that have applied to the World Bank, Guyana is the only one that's pending. Guyana applied since this 18th of March, and we are still pending. Everybody else has been, the status has moved from pending to granted. They might not have gotten all the money they asked for in those countries, but they at least got money. Guyana's gotten nothing. And without it, how do we help our people? The poor people, the struggle that goes on daily for people. Shops are closed, restaurants are closed, businesses are down, businesses are closed, people have been laid off because of the pandemic. That's something that's happened. But it is only through proper governance that you can manage this, that you can take care of people and not have them fall through the cracks. People have to educate their children. Not everybody's got computers and internet, and what happens about these? These things are serious, Ed. These things are very serious. And unfortunately, the rigging cabal are so blinded by their own greed, their own wants, their own what they want to get out of this, that they do not see what they're doing to everybody else. And I am telling you, history will not absolve them of responsibilities for the suffering that's going on. And it will not be kind to those who have stood in the way as they have now. And, you know, people like to say that people have a short memory and, you know, this will all be, people will forgive and forget. I don't see that happening. The dynamic is changing. People, not only PPP, not only the other political parties, I'm telling you, civic-minded persons who had never been in politics before, persons who had never been in the forefront this way, even supporters of the coalition are all stepping back slowly and saying, well, what are you doing? Everyone knows you've lost the election, but you keep inventing things to mislead your faithful. I trust that following the court proceedings on Thursday, we come to a swift end, because by then most of the doors are going to be closed. I have my views about where the decision will be and whether there'll be an appeal to a higher court. Those things remain to be seen. But hopefully, Guyana can breathe again soon. You're muted.
Muted, yes. Thanks, Sanjeev. Thanks, Priya, for being part of tonight's program. And of course, to our viewers, we want to say thanks for joining us this evening. We're going to be back with you at 1 p.m. tomorrow with another update. Until then, we say thanks for watching and have a very, very good rest of the evening.
Good night, Ed. Good night, Priya. Good night to your listeners, and may your God be with you.